true, and the good that you do in telling people about it.
Thank you very much. That's what it is all about. Yeah.
My uncle Mick was the youngest brother of my father, and he was a Jesuit, and as soon as he was ordained, he joined the army and was a chaplain in the army. And he was with the relieving troops that went into Belsen, and it really affected him very much. And when he came back, he didn't speak about it at all.
Well, it took me over 50 years before I spoke about it.
I have a letter that he wrote to my aunt, his sister, on his first time into Belsen. If you like, I could read it for you.
Yeah, sure.
And it's, "My dear Nor, just a line to let you know that I'm in Belsen concentration camp. When we got here, there were 60,000 people crowded into an area of much less than a square mile. Huts which could accommodate 35 were made to hold 500 to 700. It wasn't uncommon to find 3 people in one bunk, one or more of whom were dead. So far I've buried over 15,000, and I've not been able to attend all funerals, as I considered the dying more important than the dead. Those 15,000 did not take much of my time, as the 2 graves held 5,000 bodies each." And I'd like to let you have this, Tommy. We're the same age, but we came different circles.
Bill, it is a strange twist of fate that I ended up here in Ireland. And I'm an Irish citizen, and I must say the Irish people were always very good and tolerant towards me.
So you're one of our own now, a dub.
I'm one of... yeah.
A real dub.
Yeah, I'm a real dub today, yeah.
What you've done in bringing the knowledge of what has happened to a whole new generation has been a wonderful experience.
Yeah, thank you. In August 1944, there was an anti-fascist uprising in Slovakia. The Germans came in to save Tissot and crush the revolt. Soon the Gestapo were everywhere, hunting down the Jews. We didn't know who were our friends or who were our enemies. And one of the people that helped us, and helped us greatly, was the priest in the village. His name was harrowing. And my parents, they were sort of socializing with him. They used to go there for playing cards and talk, and he was a very good friend of the family. We have 2 types of people, decent and evil, and he was one of the decent people. Harrowing wanted to help us. We needed a false paper, which he provided us with, because we needed a different name, to Reichental, which immediately indicated we were Jews. As children, my brother and myself had to learn how to pray, how to cross ourselves, and pretend to be good Roman Catholic if we were to go to a different school, in a different place. And this is what harrowing taught us. We used to come to him here, and he would explain to us the significance of various things, like the Station of the Cross, and other things in the church that as children we should know. It was a very dangerous time, and it was very dangerous for the priest to do this for us.
Pán Reichental, tento obrázok bol prilepený tu, na tomto pomníku, ale odpadol, rozbil sa, tak sme z neho dali urobiť fotografiu. Pána farára Harrowinga si ľudia tu v Merašiciach pripomínajú ako veľmi dobrého, takého ľudského, privetivého, starostlivého pána farára. Zomrel 14. mája 1961. My sme dali urobiť fotografiu z tohto malého obrázku a ja vám ju darujem ako takú spomienku na neho. Nech sa páči.
Ďakujem.
Prosím.
It was October 1944, while we were already in Bratislava hiding, when my father came to this field. It was a cornfield. I remember we used to come with my mother, pick up corn, and he was walking home. And this lorry with Linkagarda was coming towards the village. And one of the local men suddenly pointed to the Linkagarda, "That's a Jew." And he was picked up. At the time we thought we never see him again. When I was a small boy at the start of the war, there were 90,000 Jews living in Slovakia. At the end of the war, there were only 12,000 still alive. We were first excluded from the society, then we were expelled, and finally we were exterminated. My mother and myself and my brother made our way to Bratislava in September 1944. We secretly stayed with my Aunt Margot, my mother's sister. Our safe house was at the back of a laundry shop. It was near the opera house. Margot had owned the shop, but she had to give it up because of the new laws brought in under the Tiso regime. Jews were no longer allowed to own a business. Also in Bratislava at the time were my uncle Julius, my cousin Dan, cousin Chava, and also Rosalie, my grandmother. In fact, there were 13 of us all together lying low in Bratislava. For Mickey and myself, it was a time of hide and seek. We had no school to go to, so we just went around in the street of Bratislava and we passed ourselves as little Slovak Gentiles. We had a false paper with false name, Mickey and Tomi Vida, typical Slovak names. We were here in this shop and we were waiting till my mother was supposed to come. But the next thing what happened was the two Gestapo men came through this door. We were sitting and waiting, and they went straight to my brother and said, "You are a Jew." And my brother said, "No, I'm not a Jew, I'm Mickey Vida." And he said, "But you are Jewish." And he said, "No." And then, of course, the Gestapo started to beat him, smacked him from left to right, and he still wouldn't admit. So he turned to me, and the Gestapo gave me smack from one side to another side, and my brother said, "No, stop beating him. Yeah, we are Jewish." And I remember distinctly, this Gestapo was sort of smirked, he has on his face, and he was smiling, and he said, "Well, if you told me this from the beginning, you would have saved yourself all this beating."
Dear Tommy, your account made me very angry. I hated Hitler. I hated the Gestapo, and I hated the neighbour who betrayed your family. However, I soon realised it was very hypocritical of me to feel this way, because I hated them for their hatred of others, and after all, it was hatred and intolerance which began this whole nightmare.
After my father was captured, betrayed in Merašice, he was put into cattle cart to Auschwitz. It meant a certain death. And every Jew was allowed to take a case. Fortunately, in this cattle carriage, there was a Hungarian safecracker, and he had a saw blade inside the handle of the case. And after the train was traveling about a day, during the night, he took that saw blade out of the handle and he cut slowly the chain and opened the door and shouted, "Whoever wants to save himself, jump after me." And my father jumped immediately after him, and shots were being fired. But he managed to jump over the railway with the Hungarian man and go to the mountain. And eventually they met with partisans. My father joined the partisan and he fought against the Germans till end of the war. This battered photograph my father carried wherever he went. He must have thought at the time that this was all he would have to remember us by. The motto of the Gestapo and the SS was, "Don't show any compassion. It is a sign of weakness." In about October 1944, we were taken to Gestapo headquarters in Bratislava, here, in Edlova, number 6. We were detained in this cellar. It's actually, you can see this window here. I imagine this is still the same as it existed at the time. And I remember my mother had the false paper, and she didn't want it to fall into Gestapo hand, because the priest that gave us this paper, she could have got him into trouble. So I remember distinctly that she took this paper out of the pocket when nobody was looking, and she stuck it under the carpet. We stayed here overnight, and the next day we were taken to the detention camp, Sevet. While we were in the grip of the Gestapo, our cousins Bandi and Jewry and their parents were still on the run. They found sanctuary on a farm near Pištany, the town I was born in. They were taken in by brave, righteous Gentiles, the Vavrova family. Here 18 Jews were sheltered in 2 secret bunkers. Tak, pán Vavrov, môžete mi v krátkosti povedať, jak tu ste schovávali toľko ľudí?
Tuto bývala moja babka, mala takto asi v týchto miestach kuchynu a hentam v týchto miestach bola spálna. A pod tú spálnu bola vykopaný bunker. A v tej kuchyni bol kredenec a pod tým cez ten kredenec sa chodilo do toho bunkra. To znamená, že keď mama a babka chceli dať jesť tým vašim kolegom, Židom, tak ten rád sa vytiahol a potom to otvorili a dali tam im jesť.
Ten bunker bol asi, podľa môjho odhadu, 4 metry dlhý, asi 3 metry široký. Po 2 stranách boli poschodové postele a vzduch sme dostávali cez takú malú dierku, betónovú rúru, a tam sme dostali vzduch Tam sme srali, tam sme robili všetko.
No.
Potrebu sme tam robili. To boli osmy, to boli také drevené postele, tam boli. Ten čas bol hrozný.
Yeah.
No ale vtedy sme to museli prežiť. Ja som tam kreslil. Nenávideli sme sa. Babičku sme chceli zavraždiť s mojim bratom. Rozumieš? Pretože sme sa už nenávideli. Stále spolu 24 hodín. No ale tak... My sme síce v koncentráku neboli, ale užili sme si tiež.
Pani Vrabrová, jak jste dávali pozor, varili a jak jste tam gazdovali pre 18 ľudí?
Dobre som gazdovala, lebo chovala som. Mala som mnoho sliepkov, kačíc, husí, vyše 20 husí.
Ja.
Múku som mala doma už uhodenú.
Áno.
No tak raz som vyšla jednému pekarovi s tými chleby, zas druhému, tretiemu, tam tých pekarov bolo vácej.
To bola nebezpečná vec. Prečo ste to robili? Však ste to nemuseli robiť.
Z lásky s ľudom, nie?
Z lásky k ľuďom.
Áno. No však teda, prečo sme
Prečo
to?
ste
Však
pomáhali?
sme ľudie, nie? Si ľudia musia pomáhať jeden druhému. Jak to?
Dear Tommy, when I go home from school in the evening, there is a lovely hot meal waiting and the house is warm. It is hard for me to imagine another equal and innocent human being denied this. At this moment, my school shoes have holes in them and I have been too lazy to replace them. If it rains, my feet get soaked from puddles. I used to think this was a travesty until I heard about how you stood in the wet with little clothes, let alone wrecked shoes. Yours sincerely, Rebecca Flattery.
From Bratislava, we were brought here to Seret concentration camp. Here they conducted the selection. And the man that conducted it was Alois Brunner, a brutal war criminal, living still today in Syria. He had the life and death in his heart. Family by family was brought in front of him, and he would say the women and men to one side, children and old people and mother to the other side. When we came in front of Brunner, he looked at my mother and he asked, "What age is my brother?" And she, without hesitating, said 12, because she knew if she said 13, he would have been sent with the other group, and we wanted to be together. We were 13 of us, our family. 7 were sent to the right side, and 6 of us, my mother, my brother, myself, my aunt Margot, Chava, and my grandmother Rosaline. We went to Bergen-Belsen. As it happened, the group that went to the right side, the young men and women, went to Buchenwald, and that was sentenced to death.
O God, full of compassion, who dwells on high, grant perfect rest on the sheltering wings of your divine presence among the holy and pure, who shine like the brightness of the firmament, for the souls of all the holy and pure and the innocent who were killed, murdered, slaughtered, burned, gassed, shot, buried alive, drowned, and strangled at the hands of the Nazi oppressors in Auschwitz, Belsen, Chelmo, Treblinka, Majdanek, Sobibor, Bergen-Belsen, Dachau, Buchenwald, and all extermination and concentration camps in Europe.
The family members that were sent by Alois Brunner to Buchenwald included my cousin Dan, his father Julius, my uncle, and uncles Geza and Ossi. Buchenwald was a brutal slave camp. Here the prisoners worked until they dropped in the stone quarry. Few lasted more than 2 to 3 months. Buchenwald was notorious for the sadistic medical experiments conducted on live prisoners. It says on the plaque, in memory of Julius Meyer, that loved life and loved people. He died in Buchenwald, spring 1945. Dan never told Chava what happened to her father. He kept it a secret from Chava till he died later. So she never knew. And we don't know in what circumstances Julius Meyer was murdered.
Dear Tommy, for the first time in my life, I began to see that those in the concentration